Thank you all for being here. We're so excited. This movie is unbelievable. It's incredible, and we have such a wonderful cast and crew here for you, which I'm going to introduce to you. I'd like to bring out the masterful and talented writer, director, producer, Denis Villeneuve.
Thank you.
Next, we have producer Mary Parent. Actor Josh Brolin. Cinematographer Greig Fraser. And costume designer Jacqueline West. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm just going to assume that you haven't seen the movie that you're about to watch, which I'm sure many of you have gotten a sneak peek. But for those that you haven't, you know, we have the best in the industry right with us. Denis, I have to start with you. You're every filmmaker's favorite filmmaker. So it's just an honor to share the stage with you.
It was very expensive to get that quote.
So look, let's talk a little bit about this masterpiece that you've put together. They've said it's an impossible movie to make. You did it with Dune 1, and here you are with an even bigger, badder. It's a badass movie, and you've done an incredible job. So can you just talk a little bit about how you came to it, how you approached it, and what brought us here today?
Thanks for your generosity, my friend. I'm a big fan of yours too. So coming from you, it's huge. It's like from the beginning of the project, one of the first decisions Mary and I took is to make a two-part movie, because we felt that the material was too dense to compress it into one film. And from there, there's one decision that was one of the important decisions that was made early in the process, was that the character of Shani. Actually, I'm a bit confused. Did you guys watch the movie, or you didn't see it yet? Huh? Oopsie. Well, let's start
right
again. Well, did I? No, okay. No, but yeah, it's a bit more tricky to talk about it now. Then I will say that it's okay. This movie, I can talk from my colleagues' ears, was like, I would say that part one was a rehearsal to make this one. It was a project that was much more ambitious technically, and but it was the first time that I had a chance to revisit a world, and the challenge to all my colleagues was to make sure that the audience will not feel any, and that will not experience a sense of déjà vu. That's what we Greig and I worked on the language of the film to feel that it has the same DNA, but we pushed the limit of it. There are in the same with the costume, the art, the production design, everything was fresh and new. So it's like we wanted the audience to have a total new, fresh experience coming out of part one and going into part two. Voilà.
Well, I have to say, you know, just watching the intimacy between scenes, between actors, it's just something that, when you're watching a big spectacle, it was always balanced. It was always in tune. You never felt like you were just watching, you know, something too big. It was an intimate story, and you just balanced it unbelievably well. So congratulations on the film. It's really spectacular. Mary, you're a brilliant producer. You've produced so many award-winning movies. You have to tell us, how is it working with this guy? Tell us the truth. Because all I hear is just unbelievable things about him. So how did you put together this cast? How did you put together this crew? Give us a snapshot.
Yeah, it starts from the top down. So I'd like to say that, I talked Josh into doing the movie. You know, it wasn't true. It started with Denis. So when you have somebody like this at the helm, everything else falls into place. But I think also, you know, you said it yourself, which is that I think Denis is one of the few filmmakers that can work on such an, you know, because it's such a psychological film, it's so character driven, everything is through the lens of the characters, but at the same time, he's painting on a massive canvas, you know, particularly in the second half of the story, you know, in part 2, which is a continuation. So, yeah, very few people can do that. And again, everything was anchored in the characters.
Can you give us like a snapshot? How many days? How many countries? Like, how long did it take to put it together?
It was a little over 100. Yeah, it was a little over 100, and we were in Budapest, Middle East, Norway.
And
When the head of the
and
studio says 100, it means 100 days.
it means it's expensive.
It's expensive.
But yeah, we were in Italy too. Yeah, a little bit in Italy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Josh, first I want to just say it's an honor to share the stage with you.
Ditto.
Following your work forever. You bring it every time, 110. Seeing you show up on screen, it's like you want to get out and start clapping. That's how it feels when you watch.
That's what Denis does when I show up on set.
I'm just like, yes, he's on. So, you know, tell
It's
us.
in my contract.
Yeah, just tell us how you do what you do, man, because you're one of a kind. You've been doing it so long, but every time it feels so fresh, it feels so new, and it's just brilliant work.
Thank you, by the way. It's very kind. I mean, I went through, it's nice because I went through, this is a 40-year career so far. It's 40 years this year. And, you know, I went through, after Goonies, I went through 22 years of nobody really caring. So I have quite an armor. And then I got lucky. This is not about me, but I got very lucky to start working with great filmmakers. And the thing with great filmmakers is I've noticed that there's a lack of ego instead of a great ego, or there's a lack of compensation. So working with Denis, I think more than most of even those great filmmakers, is somebody who really, really cares about the story. And I think what makes Denis unique is that he works on a plane that a lot of people can't work on. I think that's why him and Nolan get along so well. But there's never a lack of personal. There's never a lack of heart. There's never a lack of soul and spirit. And it's very evident when we're on the set. As much as I try to fuck that up, he doesn't let me, because he always goes back to this place of the story is the most important thing. I remember when we were doing Sicario together, I was just looking for some way to make him laugh, and he was doing a scene, and I didn't realize the scene was over and it continued without me, because I think every scene is just about me. And I started doing something funny, and he got very angry. It was the only time I saw you get really angry, because I was getting in the way of the story. So yeah, it's a special, special thing working on a movie like this. Yeah, I was very happy to be brought on.
Yeah, great to see you.
You're asking why we are here. All this is a very expensive therapy, because I need comfort and I need I'm in need of affection right now. So thank you for all participating to this.
Next, Greig, I want to just obviously an amazing cinematographer. After seeing Dune 1, it was like, well, how could you get better than that? And this just takes it to an entirely different level. Every scene between you and Denis is operating 10 out of 10. It's masterful work. The lighting's incredible. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? Obviously, you guys have worked together before, but the challenges that you faced in this sort of new chapter.
I mean, one of the things that that drew me to work with Denis is the films that I'd seen before I met Denis. You know, Incendies, and I mean, Prison is one of my favorite films. Like, the relationships in those films are beyond. So I knew that by working with Denis that I'd be able to make a film about relationships and about the people in the film. What was extraordinarily exciting about part 2 was the scale of the world and the fights that we were fighting in the film was growing. And so, you know, I knew that we were able to sort of shoot those relationships beautifully because I was working with Master Denis in that world. But then to be able to lift the scale up a notch, to be able to sort of make everything just that, you know, that bit bigger than it was in part 1. I mean, we learned a lot in part 1. You know, like, part 1 was a great learning curve for me particularly to, you know, to grow from to make part 2. So I think Part 2, as Denis said, is kind of the culmination of everything we learned on Part 1.
And can you just talk a little about some of the challenges that you may have faced, and like what was the roughest day on set? What was the hardest thing to shoot? What
I
was
mean,
it?
despite the fact that it was about a 100-day shoot, and one imagines that we're sitting around for hours during the day thinking about what we're going to do, opining about shot. It was jam-packed. In fact, it wasn't enough time. I think the hardest part was the ambition that we set in for, because we did say to ourselves, like, we're going to come and do this, but it's going to be better than Part 1. It had to be. We couldn't not walk into Part 2 and just cruise in there and shoot a film and leave. It had to be substantially bigger, and not like bigger from a ego perspective, but just bigger from a sort of an ambition perspective.
Well, you guys achieved that and more. It's truly masterful. So congratulations on that. Jacqueline, congratulations. Everybody looks incredible in the film, but it's seamless. It's one of those things where you never feel out of place when you're watching the movie. Everything is truly operating in synchronicity, and I know that that's a huge part of what you do in your previous work and what you've done in this film. Can you talk about how you approached that with Denis, and what were some of the things that you did going into this film?
Well, first off, Mary said that it does all start from the top, but for me it kind of started with Mary, because when I was first asked to do it, I said, I don't do sci-fi. I don't even know how. And Mary called me and said, just meet Denis and you will want to do this movie. So she arranged that we would meet in her office via Zoom, and I met Denis, and I called her back and I said, the positive no is now a positive maybe, and I really had to think. I watched some of Denis' movies again and knew this was somebody I wanted to work with, but I didn't want to fail him because of his vision. And once I met him, I decided, I thought about it, and I called her back and I said, yes, yes. And so she was really important to me doing this, and she's too modest. But as far as my process with Denis, he is a real visionary, and he had a vision of Dune that I thought was very, very beautiful, and I had to rise to the occasion to give him that vision. So we worked really closely, and my process was just showing him things, and I was as informed by what he didn't respond to as what I got a real big reaction to, because he reacts very from the gut to everything, and until you get the I deeply love it, you keep working and you don't stop. When you have the deep I deeply love it, then you say, okay, now I make it. And it was really thrilling to work with someone like that, who's so passionate but has a great vision. And I kind of had to, I like everything I do to be grounded. Nothing's fantasy for me, and it all has to be based on something real. Frank Herbert said to look at the future, look at the past, and so that's what I did. So in Dune 2, it was creating a lot of new worlds that we really hadn't seen, expanding on Gedi Prime and the Harkonnens, expanding on the Emperor's world. And so they all had different influences for me, from medieval to samurai to ancient Japan to ancient Bedouin, Middle Eastern. So I did try to keep it very grounded, and Denis responded to that.
I'll take any of the scraps if you don't need any of those old costumes.
No, but she if I may add here, if you don't mind, because Jacqueline, I always feel she's always very modest, humble. That's the word, but the level of detail for me is so moving to feel the passion. And one of the reasons I wanted to work with Jacqueline is that she's an expert in historical period movies. So you saw the fantastic work which she did on the last Martin Scorsese movie. And each costume, each pattern, all the fabric were made specifically for the film, coming from different part of the world according to the characters. And I was really moved just at the ground, the amount of precision and love and detail, and everything has a deep meaning, even in the textures and the origins of the fabric. Most of them were made for the film. I was really impressed by that.
Congratulations. Before we open it up to questions to the audience, I do want to end with you, the filmmaker, the man behind this, and really it is a remarkable film which you've put together. I'm not just saying it, you're about to experience it, and I think that it is an experience, and you go into it and you don't know where it's going to go, and you're just really taken on a journey. But there is the next Denis Villeneuve sitting out there somewhere in that crew. And I always love to think about the future and what you would want to leave behind, or any messages for the folks that might want to do what you're doing. And it might be simple, but anything that you can leave with some of those young filmmakers that might go.
Thank you again for your generosity. I will say this as like the way I've learned cinema is through documentary, and to be alone with a lens, with a camera, by myself, and to explore reality alone, and to develop a relationship with the lenses. I think that's the advice I will always give to people who start. There's no good path. There's different paths, and everyone has his own. Mine was through documentary, working alone, and I learned so much. By doing so.
And you can feel that in the filmmaking. So congratulations. I'd love to open it up to some audience questions. I see a hand right here. And if you're in the back, raise it high, because don't be that, real high so I can see.
Hey, thanks a lot. I have seen it. I'm not going to give the ending away, but I'm sure, I think probably a lot of people who have seen it. And so thank you very much for this. It's kind of been an epic adventure for the last 2 years for me. I want to know if there will be a part 3, when there will be a part 3, and what will happen in part 3.
Okay, page 1. No, but it's the truth is I'm writing it, and the truth is I'm supposed to give it to her after this. Tonight. No, but I'm working on it. It's those movies that's the toughest part I feel about the 2 movies that we've made, my friends and I. It's the writing, the translation from the book to images. The screenwriting process is intense, and I'm in the middle of it right now, and what I want to say is it's a thing that we are working on. Whether that I cannot answer, but it is in the process. Voilà.
I see a hand there in the back.
Also, I'm always very shy to talk about things that don't exist. I like to talk about movies once they are made, but when they are not made, they are very fragile. They are not out of the womb yet. It's vulnerable. Yeah.
Denis, I was lucky enough to attend your BFI screen talk a few weeks ago, and you were talking about the sandworm grinding sequence and that it took around 50 days to shoot. And I was interested in the cutting process in between that. And obviously it's a 5-minute sequence in the actual film that was 50 days to shoot. So what was the cutting process like that? What made it and what didn't make it? And how was it with such a plethora of footage? Editing into a 5-minute sequence.
The thing is that it was a pretty, I will say precisely, storyboarded. So there's no fat. It was what we got. We put it on screen, and the way it was done is that Joe Walker, the editor, cut the sequence with the storyboards at first, starting the sound design on the storyboards to inform us about some shot lengths and to test the concept, and he was filling the gap as the shots were coming in a daily basis, and this kind of sequence that needs to go to the VFX house as soon as possible. As Greig and I were approved, we were in constant relationship with the warm unit. Once we were getting the shot, approving the shot, and the shot was made, it was like go to the test in the editing room, and the next morning it was going to the VFX house, because those shots needs months and months to be ready, to be cooked, and to be ready for. Yeah, they are like they require tremendous amount of work visually. Yeah.
Can I add, from my perspective, that's probably one of the most precise sequences I've ever been involved with. Like, everything we did was incredibly precise. Hopefully it doesn't feel like it's been affected that way, but we were very, very particular about every particular movement, camera movement, the worm movement. Everything was 100%, approved and designed, just for that reason, because we wanted to make sure that, because we knew what the sequence was through fantastic boards, but just to be as precise and inventive and interesting as that sequence could be.
And the thing is that, if I may add, is that it's Greig and I, we didn't want to compromise. That was it's a sequence that other people could have shot it differently, but us, we wanted natural light. That's why it was so long, and using some techniques that trying to shoot as much on camera as possible. So that's why there's some shots that physically were a bit crazy to do, and and we had theory, so we had to R&D. So that's why sometimes it took that long. It's because nobody had ride a sandworm before. So yeah.
Hiya. Fantastic film, Denis. I've already seen it. But just going off the back of what you just said there about the incredible precision, you've got some fantastic performances in here. And was there any room where you were finding things with the actors on the day, or things that kind of evolved organically that way?
But I cannot answer because Josh is in the room. No, but I will say this: it's like those movies are, as Greig said, are overly. We have to plan. The preps are very long because you have to. I don't want to fall too much into details, but we shot exclusively with natural sunlight in the desert for months. So it means that you have to, for many weeks, let's say, and it means that the shots had to be precisely planned according to sun position, but I'm talking in a way that I had never seen before. Greig had, for those who have not seen the movie, I don't want to give spoilers, but let's say that some sequences that happens in the desert, the way to plan the plan, it was done. Greig was capturing the landscape into Unreal Engine to predict the sun path according to the period of the year. So we knew that if we wanted to put the camera there and having the sun behind the character at this time, we knew in November 3 it will happen at 9:45, and we had to. And it's like all the shots were planned like that, and so it was a very rigid frame. But inside the shots, as we are working, I'm trying at my best to give freedom to the actors if they come up with an idea or something. It's difficult for me to talk about this because that never happened with Josh. No, it's a joke. No. I like to humiliate him. It's part of the process. Diminish the ego. No, but seriously, I'm trying to give a bit of space, but in those movies, it's a bit more difficult, yeah. What do you think,
I'll
Josh?
give you one. I know, I'm thinking. I'm making something
How to smash back.
I will tell you one story. There was a sequence. Denis called me one day and said, "I want you to write a song with Hans Zimmer." And my response was, "Why?" But he says, you can write it. Hans will do it. And we did it, and it was a process, my own process with Hans, because I would write, and then I would call Hans. But Hans was vacationing at the time, so I'd send him lyrics, and then he'd send me like a picture of an iceberg or something like that. So he wasn't playing along, and I thought maybe he was kind of looking down on it, like Denis is making me do this with Josh, or whatever. Anyway, we did it. We came up with the song. We were doing it on the day, and it didn't feel right. There was something that just didn't feel right about it. And we did it in a couple of different ways. And I remember the next day we came in and we were doing the continuation of the scene, and then Denis, right at the last second, said, go back and sing the song right now. So it's that thing that if he doesn't feel like he has it, and I experienced this in a major way in Sicario, that if he doesn't feel like he has it, he won't go past. It's not all big scope, this and that. It all starts in the nucleus of behavior. And he makes sure that he has what he needs in order to pull the story along and have us be like we feel when we watch the movie. Even I watch the movie, and I go, fuck, I'm in that movie, that's so cool.
The thing is that you have to know is that Josh is a fantastic writer, and Greig and I are big fans of Josh's writing. And
you're a very good director, Denis.
No, it's true. Why? I was sincere.
So was I.
We have time for one more audience question. Is there anybody up there? Okay, this gentleman right there in blue. Dead center? Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask about the removal of perhaps one of my favorite characters in the book, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, Paul's sister, Alia of the Knife. I think it's one of the most sort of weird and interesting characters, but obviously incredibly difficult to put to film. So I wanted to know if you investigated how you could do that, and whether you sort of thought about would this be possible or not.
Absolutely, but I don't want to give any spoilers. But I will say this: when you do an adaptation, there's many decisions that you have to do to translate from the book to the movie. Of course, millions, and the movie at the end says more things about me than about Frank Herbert. So it's the space between the book and the movie is tremendous. I mean, we did made a lot of decisions. One of them was to compress time, to make sure that the wounds of the character will be still fresh, and that there will be more pressure on Paul. So that's what I will say, is that and it had an impact on Alia, but it brought some ideas that I was very excited about, and that and also I love to keep a bit of firepower for the future, if I may say. So like when I did part one, people were asking me, how come you didn't have Fade Rota in the movie? I didn't want to have Fade Rota in the part one because I wanted to keep elements like that will bring momentum to and excitement to the second one. And I'm having the same approach for the third one. Voilà.
Well, that's all we have time for. Can we give a round of applause?
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoy the film.
Thank you for coming to watch the film in a theater. That means a lot to us. Thank you very much. Thank you.